Hi kids, Lisa here. I thought I'd do a little April favorites video, sort of going into the things that have really been turning my crank uh, this this month. And really, I think at the heart of what's been most exciting to me have been it really two diverse kinds of deck. So on the one hand, I've been really drawn to my recent acquisitions of the Peintures du Monde deck, which features a lot of 19th century artwork. Very similar, I think, to the Tarot of Delphi, which I'm about to be getting through a trade. I'm very excited about that. But the thing about this deck is the ways in which, it really invites us to think about the subject matter through this focus in on faces and scenarios and situations. That's something that we are used to with the major arcana, of course. But, when it comes to something like, a Two of Swords, so, the investigation that this enables of what it means to be at an impasse by the depth of a kind of biographical moment rendered through a very finely attuned artistic sensibility. That's really thrilling to me, and I'm finding more and more. Just looking for another good example here. Well, even something like the Seven of Cups or the Seven of Chalices, to take the typical understanding of that card in terms of sort of proliferation of envisioned possibilities or sort of the movement of fantasy or daydream, this encouragement alternatively to dive into that inner world of creativity and emotional engagement with possible outcome, but then also to get off your ass and make a decision to choose. Here the sort of sense that there's a story behind the sumptuousness of the banquet, the sumptuousness of the spread. It just invites a different investigation of, of the card, or the Six of Coins. The way in which that makes us to think, what is generosity? What does it mean to give? What does it mean to live in a world where the human whose hand is holding out those cherries is connected to this slow movement of the natural world, drawn toward our own indwelling spirit of giving. Okay, so yeah, that's a whole bunch of words to say I'm liking this kind of visual stimulation. Yeah. That the kind of the sense of the close-up, the sense of the invitation toward narrative. Okay, so that kind of deck has been really inspiring to me, and in that context, the other two decks that I've been playing with have been and I love Printer Studio. I love making these little pouches for my decks. It's kind of hard not to now want to make pouches for all of my decks, but that would be a whole bunch of pouches. Anyway, my Tarot of the Hidden Realm, which has been a deck that I got to know through Fool's Dog, through the the iPhone app, iPhone figure eight, but hadn't actually acquired a copy until literally a month ago, 6 weeks ago. And so now, having the deck in my hand, and I'm still wishing I could find it, one of the older, thin Llewellyn cardstocks that's a little bit beefier than this, but this comes from the new version with the hinged box. Anyway, this deck where all of the cards have a story behind them, all of them have a central fae figure. You guys know this deck. I don't need to show you this deck, but it really exemplifies that kind of use of story, of narrative, of the human form in the minor arcana as well as in the major arcana to help us into card meaning. And Barbara Moore, I mean, she's like a master at this kind of storytelling. I mean, I love Hidden Realm. I love the Steampunk Tarot. Those are the two decks of hers that I know best. And I think what really cinched it for me was a very powerful reading I had a couple weeks ago with the Five of Swords, which is a card I'm always really scared of. It's probably of all of the cards in the deck, I mean, literally, of all of the cards in the deck, I think the Five of Swords is the most intense. And, this image, and then, oops, I think it's underneath here. Barbara Moore's explanation of it, her story about it, really exemplifies the way in which a deck that focuses on faces and story can blow your mind away. So let me just read the you're watching me look for the right page, and boy, is that fun to do. Okay. Clouds boil in the sky, thick and dangerous. Great slashes of jagged light cut the air, illuminating the world. Illuminating the world in a strange light just for a moment, then disappearing, leaving the tang of metal in their wake. The earth begs for rain to begin beating down, cleansing the sky and comforting the land. The furious show in the heavens plays games with reality, shadows and light changing so fast that it is hard to tell what is real and what is a trick of the storm. The energy is infectious. Hawks swoop down, wanting to escape the fray, but too frantic to land. She, a warrior who never shirks a battle, feels the call of war in the very air around her and grabs her sword and shield, ready to wield them in the line of duty. Compelled to attack, she is also confused, not quite sure where her enemy is. The hawks, whom she always considered companions, attack. Without thought, her training takes over and battle ensues. And then the divinatory meaning. Chaos and confusion in the mind is a dangerous thing. Once it begins, it is hard to stop because it feeds itself. If allowed to continue unchecked, you could end up winning some battle that you think you are fighting, but at a cost that not only isn't worth it, but could totally break your heart. This card lets you know that while things look chaotic and dangerous, they aren't as bad as you are making them out to be. In addition, if you just let this situation play out naturally, it'll blow over soon. Trying to take action now will only bring regrets. So I talked about all this in another video, so apologies for repeating myself. But, that interpretation of the Five of Swords, so good. So good. And so actually, different from the iconography of the writer Waite Smith, and yet complementary in a powerful way. The stone that I'm using with this deck is a green kyanite that was given to me by a dear friend. That's also one of my favorite things this month. Okay. A deck that is, I think, a new deck that I think is really powerful in this vein is Brandy Eve Allen's Invisible Light Tarot, which I've really been enjoying and loving this month. And, I have it sitting under this beautiful little apatite heart that has just a little bit of fire in it, a little bit of sparkly. And this is a deck which, in some ways, I have not exactly mixed feelings about this deck. This is a deck that doesn't quite fit me perfectly. There's a lot of elements of this deck that, it's a very 20-something hipster deck. And a lot of the cards feel just too young for me, like the Emperor, I mean, this is not, a middle-aged woman's vision of the Emperor. This is a younger woman's vision of the Emperor, I think. The Ace of Fire, these are not archetypes that talk to me exactly. It's a very white deck. That's another part of it. And I'm thinking, yeah, every card has a human form, and the forms tend to be very, they're white, they're thin, they're young. That said, there's some cards in this deck. I mean, there's something really, really smart about it. So, this isn't really going to be a full-on review, but Brandy Eve Allen writes, it could not be seen until the darkness became invisible light. It could not be seen until the darkness became invisible light. So there's, something about photography as a medium, particularly in its like old school analog um, realization, the way in which, the darkness becoming sort of touched by light, the chemical reaction that then produces, alchemical reaction that then produces the image, that process of creating art and that way in which the imprint of reality onto this medium creates the vision that comes forth. That powerful, you know, metaphor, but it's more than a metaphor, that of an alchemical reaction that takes what cannot be seen and makes it visible. That's at the heart of this deck, and at the heart of the way that this deck seeks to provide insight through divination, through tarot. So the relationship between light and meaning is everywhere in the deck, and that tilts actually in a really, really, really super interesting way for me. It tilts the relationship among the four suits. So the suits in this deck are identified elementally. So, swords is air, wands are fire. So you've got, the four of air, the four of fire, water, and earth. But because of the focus on light, all of the suits really feel like they're about fire and air. They're about the transmission of light through the medium of air. So a great example of that for me, where this really became clear, is something like the Six of Fire. So, here a Six of Wands kind of focus on success and triumph. You have a woman who's literally blowing, sort of making bubbles, right? And is kind of on top of the world. But that sense of triumph carries with it, not just the light of the sort of the dappled meadow that she's standing in, but the air of her breath that creates the bubble, right? That creates this sort of realization of the dream. So then the text associated with this, victory, it says. You have learned your lessons without them becoming baggage. The past is serving its purpose. There's an inner knowing that releases you from the whims of public opinion. At the same time, this understanding makes you magnetic. No need to fake it. Do you, and the rest will fall in place. So that text gives you a sense of the colloquial, punch of this book. This book is really written in a very simple and chatty style, but, largely effective. Do you, and the rest will fall in place. And then it has keywords at the bottom: self-esteem, genuine, conviction, growth, alignment, charismatic, step in the hero's journey. So the sense of victory here is about a kind of like, hey, I've succeeded. I don't give a fuck anymore. I am here and I am not going anywhere, and check it out. Right? This sort of power, but it's expressed, literally through the breath in the bubble. Similarly, something like the Two of Air. So the Two of Swords here, the way in which, the play of light and dark. Again, everything about light in this deck, and the backs of the deck sort of speak that, with this sort of burst of the sun, this and the halo around it in splitting the night, but also that veil around her, the way the sort of traditional iconographic blindfold of the Two of Swords, how the blindness of the moment of impasse, how it's the way in which light is hidden from us, we can't see, but how that's also carried in the airiness and gauziness of the blindfold as a scarf that drapes behind her in the wind. So there's always this play of light and air. I love what she's done with the Hermit. So the Hermit is withdrawn, steps inside, but the retreat of the Hermit is completely transparent. And I like the way in which, this sort of transparent teepee with the light pouring in, like just the shape of it sort of recalls the Hermit's lamp, or the hourglass that lamp is drawn from in earlier decks. So I really quite love this deck. I love the way in which the page of air, the sort of incipient qualities of the page here gets expressed in this real disproportionately huge sky. Just air almost completely um, fills the image. And so that sense of being just on the edge and the brink, emergent possibility. There's a lot of this deck that just feels really intuitive and really smart, and I've gotten incredibly helpful readings from it. So it's not, when I see a kind of Queen of Earth who just, doesn't quite, I always, I want sort of sensual and voluptuous, a sense of someone who's really kind of lived in a relationship to the earth and sort of a sense of maturity. And so the youthfulness, the kind of monochromatic nature of the models, the 20-somethingness, that makes it feel like it's not my deck. But in other ways, I just think it's really smart. So Brandy Eve Allen, Invisible Light Tarot. It's a little bit spendy, but I think really a valuable addition to any tarot enthusiast's collection, and still available. So grab your copy before it disappears. So I started this whole 16 minutes ago. Oh my God, I've just been gabbing and gabbing. I said there have been two kinds of decks that have really appealed to me this month. Have been like at the heart of what I've been doing. So they're the decks that are like have these faces and stories and narrative and sort of unleash that. And then, it's been a big old continuing to plunge after March into Pips. Sort of got a lot of us spending a lot of time with our Marseille and Pip style decks. But that, for me, that has been a kind of momentum over the past 4 or 5 months, longer than that, 6, 7 months. And now I'm feeling like just full on, really finding myself drawn into the world of Marseille and drawn into a lot of these like 1970s versions of the Marseille. So, I've talked before about my love of the Tarot Classic and just the cheeriness and brightness of its colors. I love the way in which the suits in that deck are kind of color coded. So swords, pink and gold, and blah, 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 blah. Cups, blue and gold, and so forth. And they're, discs, green and gold, pentacles, green and gold. It's a deck I really like. And I got it, from an eBay vendor, and it has a sort of wonderful smell, a little bit of their shop or their home. So that makes me really happy. Frankly, I don't know. I like how my deck smells. And recently, from another vendor, I got a copy of the Angel Tarot, which is a Stuart Kaplan Tarot de Marseille deck, but he distributed it, but it was made by the Angel publishing company in Japan. So it's one of these Japanese tarot decks. There are a number of them, and very beautiful. It's interesting. I wish I knew more about sort of the Japanese tarot collecting world. But in this deck, the suits are familiar kind of our familiar Italian, discs, wands, swords, and cups in the way that they look, but they also have the French suit sigil on the cards as well. So diamonds for discs, and so you see the blue spade for swords, and etc. Hearts for cups. So it's interesting, that kind of hybrid. And the color palette is really, it's great, and it's also just a little bit interesting. So, you know, these browns and golds and pinks and peaches. And then this weird, it's a very quirky deck, which I actually really love. This weird sort of modesty. So, you know, it made sure that there's no weird, unseemly nudity. You've got loincloths where you might otherwise have some nudity. There's a really funny example of that with the devil. So, you know, God forbid that the devil should be ambiguously gendered. So in this deck, oh, I've got to see if I can find it quickly. I should have pulled it out ahead of time. In this deck, the devil is wearing like leggings. Oh, I have to find it. He's wearing leggings so that you don't worry about what's down there. Here we go. And his minions are also not sexed. So a lot of the creepiness potential in the Marseille tradition is not present in this deck. And the backs, you know, it's that very 1970s kind of plaid style back. You know, the cardstock, it's like the classic. The cardstock is really nice, slightly laminated, very easy to shuffle, nice and beefy. It's easy to blow off this deck as just super goofy. You know, it might be a quirky deck. I'm realizing now actually that the lack of nudity in the Sun card is not atypical for the Marseille. I was thinking of the Noble, the sort of the earliest version of a Marseille style deck, the 1650 deck, where in the Soleil you have this one figure who isn't fully naked, but you do have a sort of more sexualized reading of the Sun card. But, you know, anyway, I mean, it is a quirky deck. I mean, to have the devil in leggings, I'm sorry, that's weird. Nonetheless, quirky as this deck is, it's got something going on that is kind of interesting. So this reading I did this morning, I was using the 6-card spread from, let's see if I can get those all in the frame, from Jean, there we go, sort of, from Jean-Michel David's reading the Marseille Tarot, or Tarot de Marseille. And, you know, the way this angel deck, the way that it depicts the 7 of Swords, you know, just instantly, this was my sort of foundational card in the spread, instantly made me think about the intellectual project that I should be working on. This sort of central card, sort of pointing me toward the left, pointing me toward sort of what my past intentions have been, and sort of encouraging me to enter into this project, and then providing me with some real encouragement indeed. You know, the 9 of Cups in this deck. I don't know enough about the Angel Tarot to know if the pips were based on any existing historical model, but, you know, this is what we expect for, oh, that's the 10. This is what we expect for the 9 of Cups. Usually, you know, the sort of symmetry and the ways in which that kind of sense of culmination and fulfillment, sort of not quite reaching its complete fruition. It's not the 10. It doesn't have the crowning of that final amazing cup with its sort of cross on the in the covering, but you have this sense of stability, of 3 times 3 times 3, of this sort of cubing of that fabulous energy that 3s carry, of growth, of emergence, right? But in this version of the 9, instead there really is this focus on the central figure, which is surrounded by these sort of holly leaves and the two hearts that kind of point toward it on either side. And then the little white book for this deck isn't a generic white book. It really seems to address this version of the deck itself. The 9 of Cups, what it says here is, hold on, wait for it. Success, material attainment, abundance, well-being. advantage, well-being, abundance, good health, victory, difficulties surmounted. And I feel like that central cup really helps carry the image of victory. So there's a kind of quality of victory here that otherwise I wouldn't necessarily see in the Nine of Cups, which, the sort of wish fulfillment card that typically is, doesn't necessarily make me think victory. But here in this deck, it has that sense. So, and then I got the Hanged Man to sort of denote my own stasis right now. Very apt, very true. And then culminating in the Four of Wands, which in this deck bespeaks stability, but also the sort of the two anchoring down into the earth in the middle, the sort of the core, kind of the energy, that sort of kundalini energy of the wands here, driving my stake into material, anchoring and rooting and grounding, but then also the two outer wands pointing up aspirationally toward the sky. So the way in which this deck has the Four of Wands denoting a kind of stability really emphasizes a relationship between heaven and earth, which I love. Okay, so, it's a quirky deck, devil in leggings, Lululemon devil, but that said, it's got something good going on. So Marseille on the one hand, portraiture on the other, I feel like two very different ways in which I've been this month having some great delight with my cards. Along with my exploration of these 70s style decks, I acquired and have been reading a copy of Tarot Classic by Stuart Kaplan. So this book, and I've got, I don't think I have a first printing, but I have a first edition of this book. So it came out in 1972, and it is illustrated by the Tarot Classic. And his readings of the minor arcana are really pretty interesting, because in a lot of ways, the readings of the minor, they're not Marseille style readings. They are really, and as I'm looking at it now, I'm realizing that these are the same. So maybe I was too quick to think that this little white book was really specific, because the Nine of Cups here, it says success, material attainment, advantage, well-being, abundance, good health, victory, difficulties surmounted. Okay, what I just said about this little white book, maybe not so true. Maybe it's just the same text that he uses. Yeah. All right, I clearly have to look at little white books a little bit more. But, these readings, like the Four of Cups, weariness, aversion, disgust, disappointment, unhappiness, bitter experience, stationary period in one's life. Now, there's just nothing in the Four of Cups as we see it. Of course, I'm not going to be able to find it quickly. As we see it in the Tarot Classic, there's nothing in this image that speaks weariness, aversion, disgust. Clearly in his discussion here, Stuart Kaplan is invoking the meanings of the Rider-Waite Tarot back onto these cards. But it's interesting to see, how in the early 70s he's talking about tarot, and to see, and there's stuff about Lenormand here and other kinds of divination decks, and I think with the courts and the major arcana, it does get more explicit. So their images and then the readings, which seem to reflect the images of the cards. So I've been reading that. I am waiting to really take my Tarot de Marseille exploration. I'm waiting to get a little mini version of the Grimaud, sort of classic Tarot de Marseille. They made a little mini version, which I think is still in print, and you can get it through third-party dealers on Amazon. Once I get that little sweetie pie, I'm going to put it in my little sweetie pouch. So this is the star image from the Visconti Sforza. Yes, I know Visconti Sforza is not a Marseille deck, but I like this image anyway. So I will put my little new mini when I get it, and I'll unbox it maybe for you guys to see. And then this will be a deck that I can carry with me in my purse so that I really can spend a lot of time on the fly working with Terre de Marseille and figuring out my own kind of reading of that very special deck. What else do I want to say? Oh, other things I'm really excited about. So Bodhi Seed, that's her name on Eclectic Forum, gifted me a trimmed version of the Thoth. I can't remember if I've shown this off here before, but it's so beautiful. This trimmed version of the purple box. No, is it the purple box or the green box? But just the US Games in print edition. First of all, the cardstock's really nice, and the imagery is so vivid and brilliant. And I have it in, so we've got art on one side and the Queen of Discs on the other, and my new gorgeous fluorite point that is just, it's just so luminous. It's like water, and it flows, but then it's sharp and geometric and symmetrical, almost like a kaleidoscope. So this mixture of kind of watery clarity and then the sharpness of the lines, it just, I don't know. It just seems to me like it loves my trimmed Thoth deck. I recently traded away my trimmed edition of the Tarot of the She, or not trimmed, but edged. I was ready to let it go. I think I'm going to acquire another copy of the Tarot of the She, but I was ready to let that go. And it liberated in letting it go this gorgeous quartz. This is actually the very first crystal I've ever bought. Is that right? Well, other than like things like this aventurine heart, little stones and stuff, but the very first crystal I ever consciously bought. And it's so yummy. Okay. I think that's enough for now. So a bunch of stuff, a bunch of things that I love. Still getting to know my new obsidian egg. Recently got a copy of the Navigator's Tarot of the Mystic Sea, which I haven't yet opened. I'm waiting to get a copy of the book. I have a feeling this deck is going to blow my mind. Okay, I think that's enough. I've been gabbing and babbling for a long time. Okay, bye guys.